The Art Box, episode 467 with Brian Gibson. I've been waiting to get Brian Gibson for 2 years now. We got connected today, and I think we had just a glorious talk. Brian, he is some talent. Anyway, today's poem is reflective. Where silence meets the sage, steel remembers wind and sky. Art doesn't interrupt the desert. It learns to breathe beside it. Welcome to the Art Box Podcast, where creativity lives, but more importantly, where stories are told. I'm your host, Steve, and here we believe every piece of art carries a story, and every artist has one worth sharing. From theater and song to archaeology and to our public lands, we explore the many ways creativity shows up in the world around us. Because I'm always happy to view a work of art, but I'm never fully satisfied until I've heard the story behind it. That's what we're all about, unpacking the journeys, the moments, the people, and the meaning that bring art to life. So whether you're an artist, a storyteller, or simply curious, pull up a chair. Let's open the box.
Oh, effortlessly beautiful. That's Venus and being
you. So Brian, welcome to the Art Box. I'm so excited that we're getting to talk because your art is it's all over the place, and that's a good thing.
Thank you. That does mean a lot. I like that description, all over the place, because I'm a little all over the place.
Well, I didn't know whether you'd take that as good all over the place or all over the place, you know? Hey, Brian, but one thing I wanted to talk to you about before we started with art, I think in your day job, you do some very important things. Do you want to talk about that first? My wife had worked with developmentally disabled in the school system and also for adults. And I see that you work with children with autism and adults living in group homes. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
That's correct. I do that. And well, God bless your wife. You know, I got involved in this line of work in 2024 at a school on the east side, Matter East Academy. It's a charter academy. I just applied to have a job. I was dating someone, a manager in that field, applied behavior analysis. So I start the job at the school, and I'm doing so well that they end up saying, "Hey, Brian, you know, we hired you. You didn't have any experience, but we really like what you're doing. Would you like to go to college and become a teacher? You know, put you on the fast track." And I was like, "That sounds great," because I'm sick of construction. I've done construction for many years, and it's breaking my body, I don't like it. You know, I don't like old dudes yelling at me. I don't like the work. I love the finished product. But yeah, so this was a welcome opportunity, and I jumped on it. Fast forward to today, like a year and a half, 2 years later, almost 2 years. It's been growing still. I left Matter Academy, but I'm still in college. I've become a registered behavior technician. I work with primarily kids in the foster care system right now, younger teens and kids getting ready to go out into the world on their own. And it's been incredible because I find a lot of my own story in a lot of these kids that I meet. That sounds a little heavy, maybe because it is, but that's the truth I've come to. Is I spent a lot of my life wondering, like, dude, why was school so hard? Why do I have a hard time like communicating? I feel like I have a hard time communicating. Ultimately, I've got stuck in this job. Like I've had its ups and downs, right? Because they don't get paid a lot, people that work with this population. But the reward is pretty incredible when you build these relationships with, you know, people that really need them. I've learned a lot about it, this foster to prison pipeline, they call it. And you know, I was damn near dead from the lack of male or female, any kind of leadership growing up. So my art career definitely ties into my younger years, and I feel like it's come full circle to where now I'm meeting kids that I already know that they're going to click with this drum machine that I brought in. I already know that they're going to click with this synthesizer or piano that I'm bringing in, because I could just tell by them talking to me I just tell real, recognize real, crazy, recognize crazy, whatever you want to say. Not that they're crazy, but it takes a unique person to work in this field. And I've learned that firsthand as well. And it's just been a blessing in disguise to not only get to know myself better and my limitations and my strengths, but how to utilize those better for like the world I live in and my community. And it sounds cheesy, but man, does it feel good. I used to think like that sort of sentiment was cheesy, quote unquote, but I mean, I'm loving it.
Brian, I just feel it's very important, and I don't know how people can live if they have a job, because we all need jobs, I guess. If they have a job where they hate going into work every day. I mean, I love going into work every day. And I know my kids thought they thought I was the crazy one. But if you love going into work every day, and I love the idea that you're providing them a spark of something different.
Yeah. The one, I don't know if you've noticed this or heard your wife speak about it, but a lot of people, when they meet this population, they kind of treat them, they don't know how to treat them. They've never met someone with a disability of no matter what it is, or they can't relate. And so they don't know how to talk to them. Well, that being said, they're never going to introduce the drum set or the keyboard or the, hey, let's wrap our thoughts and feelings out, because I can tell you're having a hard time with like actually saying it, but I see you love rapping and I see your face light up when I even suggest that. So it's been really funny. One of my main go-tos in a session is to bring my lavalier microphones and just pretend like the client and I are doing a podcast.
Okay.
Oh man, dude, they love that because, it gives them like an excuse to talk about the stuff that was too real to talk about before. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you asking me about that. I'm still relatively new to identifying it thoroughly, but I'm loving the ride so far.
Well, I hope you, and it sounds like you can, I hope you can look in what you're giving some of them or all of them and pat yourself on the back and say, Brian, good job.
Well, thanks, Stephen. That really means a lot. Took a long time to get around here, It took a lot of surviving to get here, and that's very common as well. We all had the highs and lows. So,
Brian, thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that.
So, and I just had to talk about that first. We'll talk about art now. You describe yourself as an interdisciplinary artist. For someone meeting you the first time, how do all those creative disciplines fit together?
So, feel free to stop and ask clarifying questions, but I'll start with saying that I was a kid and I had this Disney Mickey Mouse keyboard that lit up and it showed you how to play the songs, and it light that one, you press it, light the next one, so on and so forth. And I love that. I clicked with it. It was like a thing I could do for a tick and like get my energy out, but also learn. It was like reading, but expressive, and I could feel the music. And as I got older and got more into school, I would fail every single class because I was bored, man. I couldn't pay attention. And the meds that my mom tried to put me on weren't working, Adderall, Ritalin, stuff. I didn't click with them. So my teachers all got together and said, hey, if he wants to listen to music, we can let him listen to music. If that's going to help him focus. All right, if he's going to focus on something, if he wants to continue in school, he needs to focus on something. So let's have him just write something creative, but it needs to be finished. It needs to be either the finished plan for a story or the first chapter of a story, or, does that make sense? Anything. They just wanted to see something finished from me. So that really kind of shaped who I've become in my later years, because as I look back, I think about all the teachers that were just like, all right, Brian, in health class, if you go home and learn Pearl Jam's Yellow Ledbetter on guitar, I can see how much you love guitar and how much you light up. So if you do that, I'll pass you. Oh. And so I would go home and learn the song. And looking at what I do now with paintings and whatnot, it's a way for me to go, hey, let's talk. It's a big flag I can wave and go, look at this. Don't you want to? It sounds silly, but it's true. It really is like a radio signal I'm sending out to other people who might be able to withstand the conversation that will ensue if they bring it up. I'm very passionate about what I do and the possibilities, and sometimes it could be a lot for people, but I've found that it's not something I should be ashamed of. I should try to tame it a little bit and be more and show more receptive listening skills, because I can rant a lot, man. Ask anyone that knows me. I can really talk. I love exploring ideas. That school setting where they're just like, do anything. As I grew older, it was really rewarding, because even in this day, I don't really fully realize that a lot of people, this stuff goes over their head. Artwork, music, creative stuff isn't naturally intuitive to everybody. Well, it is for me, and other like living skills aren't naturally intuitive to me, but I'm learning about that side of my life now too in my 30s. As I had my own son, my life, my brain had to develop that other side. My son's going to be 6 this year. It's just been a journey of transformation since my 20s. It's so cool to see the juxtaposition of my mid 30s to what my 20s and younger years were.
Yeah, just wait till you get to your 70s.
I know, man. Now I hear the 40s where you get the money, so I'm looking forward to that part of my story.
I don't know, but that's also interesting. It's interesting that, because I look at the school here, and there's some kids that don't pay any attention at all. They just sit there. They're not allowed to have their cell phones now, but in past years, they would just sit on their cell phone the entire time. And they would pay no attention, and they would be kind of failed. You really can't fail anybody, but you got to find what's going to give. And I keep using the word spark. You got to find something that's going to spark a kid. Because not everybody's the same, and you can't treat them the same, and you can't teach them the same. That's just my opinion.
Well, and just to comment on that, like a lot of the kids sitting in class, it's obvious. We all know this. You never know what's going on at home, right? But a lot of people in their life don't take the time to sit down and go, hey, what do you like about this game that you always play? What do you actually like about this song that I don't understand? If to save my life, I couldn't understand the music you listen to, but what do you like about it? Let's talk about it, and maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle. Like, I really do feel like that's lost on kids often feel like persecuted, and everything's just so heavy and everything's so new, and it is hard as kids aren't learning to read as much. Imagine that you don't have any verbiage if you can't read about stuff like that. So I don't know. What I do know is that spark is a great word, because that's exactly what it is. You can see the moment when it clicks with their brain, like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. I can put these two things together and flip that upside down. And then, the thoughts start going, the wheels start moving.
Yeah, and that's important. The wheels have to, the mind has to move. I could just talk forever about it. You began performing at open mics, and I want to know how scary that was, in 2010. What was it about music that first drew you in?
Well, I remember being in that 6th grade beginning guitar class and having that acoustic guitar. I think it was a double of every kid in the room having a guitar and just picking it up naturally from the keyboard stuff I was doing in like elementary school. When I was at the end of the semester, school year, whatever, it was me and 3 other kids that the teacher said, hey, you guys are really getting this. Everyone's going to learn Ode to Joy for their final exam, but we're going to pick you to learn Blackbird by the Beatles. And I really want you to learn this finger picking style. And I really want you to learn how to read tabs, because when you go home for the summer, you'll be able to now use this and learn whatever song you want. And, this will open up a whole new door. And it did. Because in the years following, I would start I was in a Christian metal band when I first began. Because as I mentioned before, I relate with a lot of the clients I work with. And I was always going to a summer camp or hanging out with a friend's house because whatever was going on in my house, you know what I mean? So I was always involved with other family stuff. And like often the families would be into religion, churches, and we would go to Bible camp. And so long story short, my first band, it was a way for me to be social. It was a way for me to have new experiences playing on a stage. I played my first stage at Central Christian Church when I was like 13 for the New Year's Eve lockdown. I remember that because it was cool playing in a room. It was a big room and we played it and it was cool. We had our amps, we had our guitar, and you felt like a little rock star. So then I get into high school and I'm making my own stuff on the internet and I'm applying to songwriting competitions when I'm like 15, and I actually won one of them with this song called "Golden Leaf Moment," and I don't know, it was like a death metal song, and I programmed the drums and I panned the guitars to left and right, and I had such a blast diving into recording that it was just full on ahead. After that, I moved to Pahrump for high school.
Steve and Brian, since today's conversation brought us to Pahrump, Nevada, I couldn't resist learning a little more about this unique desert community. The name Pahrump comes from the Southern Paiute language and is often translated as water rock or water in the rock, a reminder that this valley has long been sustained by underground springs in the middle of the Mojave Desert. Today, Pahrump is home to more than 45,000 residents and sits about an hour west of Las Vegas, making it one of Nevada's fastest growing communities. It's known for its wineries, wide open desert landscapes, and as a gateway to Death Valley National Park. One thing I found especially interesting is that Pahrump reminds us how communities grow in unexpected places. What was once a quiet agricultural valley has become a thriving town where artists, entrepreneurs, writers, and outdoor enthusiasts all find inspiration under some of the darkest night skies in the country. It just goes to show that creativity doesn't always flourish in big cities. Sometimes it takes root where the stars are brightest, the horizons are widest, and the desert has a story waiting to be told.
And they had the most interesting music scene, Pahrump did. Like Pahrump High School, we would have these little shows way out in the corner edge of town in someone's backyard, and there'd just be a big plume of dust. And, you know, I was in this band called Prosthetic Limb. They asked me to join as their bassist. I didn't play bass, but I did for this band. So I look back and I love that name, Prosthetic Limb. And what a funny metal name.
How can you not like that?
Yeah. And so just these, you see where this is kind of going. It's like I continue to just follow it as hard as I could, music itself. And I made my band, my first little project called Animal Cruelty. And it was just me on the bus staring out the window, and I saw at the Pahrump Valley High School, this new school to me, animal cruelty is illegal or whatever. I was like, animal cruelty. That's just it just struck me. I always liked words. I was always looking at Wikipedia or dictionary, whatever, because I really liked, it felt intense to me. Words could feel intense. I felt that when I was younger. I was also an interesting kid, man, because I was bringing up, like, I found a book when I was a teenager, Astral Projection for Dummies. And I'm like, what was I doing? Like, what was my mom buying me this? And you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And that was a book I had when I was very young. I'm like, where was my mind at? Where did that come from? But I was just very, very into these abstract ideas. And all I knew was music at the time. I didn't really know about art yet. So, you know, some years passed and I moved back out to Las Vegas around 2010. And that's when I just stumbled upon that big old paintbrush right on the corner. I don't know if it's even there anymore, but there was this big metal sculpture paintbrush that was right outside the Arts Factory. And they used to do painters on the patio. And Dre, whatever you want to call him. That's his name on Facebook, Dre Dizzle. But Dre, Alex Huerta, Alexander Sky, Eddie, the Three Bad Sheep, you know, all the artists were there. I didn't know it yet. I was, I think, 21. And I just I did a poem at first. It was about my grandma, and I had a lot of feelings. You know, my grandma was going through some health stuff, and I was expressing it through poetry. And looking back, it's like, I don't know. I didn't like that my first write-up was like, oh, he wrote this for his grandma. But I'm like, whatever. Whatever. You know, you can't, we as artists are like, I don't like that. But it is what it is. But yeah, I remember having that feeling. But I also remember coming back over and over to get better and better. And I added music. And then eventually they had like a band out there. And they'd be like, yo, you want us to play while you... I'm like, well, can I play guitar too? And then it just became, I'd go there every week. And I met Alex Huerta, and he reminded me of one of my teachers when I was middle school. He just grabbed me and went, Brian, one day you're going to play in front of thousands of people, and you're just so, all the compliments, you know. And at the time I was like, thanks, man. You know, I did appreciate it. I did feel it. But looking back, that was the spark I needed for someone not related to my school, not related, just a random guy, this little tiny guy. And I'm a tall dude. So this little short, bald-headed dude telling me that. it just felt powerful. Well, Alex Huerta would really, really vouch for me and go to bat for me in terms of telling people about my band. You know, everybody was really receptive. I don't know if it's because I was from Pahrump coming to Vegas as like a new kid in town. I really do think that had something to do with it. Because, you know, once familiarity breeds contempt. You know, the longer I live in Las Vegas, and so I don't know, it just kept going, and wax pig melting became a thing. But I discovered painting with these guys, and I don't know, any questions right now? I feel like I'm at a good juncture point, so I'm about to start painting downtown.
Well, so your former band, you just mentioned it there real quick, Wax Pig Melting.
Yeah. That was an Indian name I thought was interesting.
Okay.
Wax Pig Melting. I thought that was funny.
So far, you've come up with the best names.
Brian, I had no idea Wax Pig Melting was your band. I have heard your music covered in the Fortitude Valley district of Brisbane. My husband and I always loved the Wax Pig Melting sound. My research uncovered the following. Brian began as a musician before becoming widely known as a visual artist. In fact, he once sold his paintings to help fund his band's final recording project, blending music and visual art long before it became fashionable. Today, he continues to create paintings, installations, public art, and music, seeing them all as different ways of telling the same story. Which reminds me of something we say here on the Art Box. Sometimes a band becomes an art studio, sometimes a painting becomes a song, and sometimes the strangest name you've ever heard turns out to belong to someone who simply refuses to stay inside one creative box. Addy over and out.
But you said you do words, so you're doing words good.
I love them.
So what the whole Alex Huerta thing, and I'm sure there was other people there too, but you know, it's just, can you remember how and why you met him? And, you know, a chance, here's somebody who helped you, who saw something in you. It was probably just a chance meeting, or, you know, you would go there and, you know, we meet these people, and contacts are so important.
Oh, it was the first time I played my original song, and at the Painters on the Patio in like 2010, maybe 2011. Yeah, I played my song on stage for the open mic, and he came up to me like, dude, you sound like Jane's Addiction, and that's my favorite band. And there's a lot of people, you're right, there were a lot of people tied into this. I knew a lot of, at the time, dubstep was really big. There's a lot of producers, a lot of people trying to make stuff happen. Well, our first single for Wax Pig Melting was called Bridges. And this guy owed a member of my band a favor. So we went over to his like mansion. This guy at the mansion, I was, what the hell is this? And he's like, all right, yeah, we're Eurotrash Collective. I guess they came from Europe to live in Vegas, obviously. Eurotrash Collective, that they were such good dudes, because the guy was like, okay, so you want us to record you. You came all the way to my house, my recording studio, but you don't have a drummer. Well, I'll jump in there. I play drums. So our first single was very collaborative, in the sense that I've always been very collaborative. I bump into these people. I was moving from Pahrump to Vegas, back to Vegas, to Pahrump, to, you know, and just wherever I was, I had to make stuff work. So I had people that I could call on, like, hey, you down to jump in on this thing? Or, hey, what do you got going on? And I really liked collaborating, because I think, as I mentioned before, leading up to all this, it was always a social thing for me, you know. Alex Huerta was just happened to be hanging out every day because he loved art too at the open mics. And so I think that's how we met. It really wasn't anything other than we both loved and felt drawn to music, so much so that it took up every weekend night. You know, we tried to make as many events as we could, just because that's what made us feel alive.
This all sounds fun.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you were learning. And you were growing. And I
really was.
Yeah. When you're recording improvised guitar in the desert, and I can see this in my mind right now, who's leading who? The musician or the landscape?
Well, it's funny, because I thought I was leading, but the more I look back the more I do this project in relative obscurity, it started from a grant that I wrote. I learned how to write grants, and I'm like, wow, my brain does work. I just need to focus on, you know, so I can write these complex, you know, proposals. And so I kept doing it. But my third one, this last one I did in March, this administration took away the project grant, or it took away enough funding to make the project grant for individual artists obsolete, which is fine. But, this project is taking on a mind of its own, because this desert location, Goldwell Open Air Museum, I got pulled out there by the executive director and founder of the place, Suzanne Hackett Morgan, and I don't think anyone's in charge out there. I think it's like a weird portal of some kind where I don't know about that stuff, because I feel silly talking about it sometimes, but there is an unseen element to a lot of this stuff, and it's a very intuitive vibe for all of art, no matter what medium or genre I do. So I would say the Red Barn Art Center in particular, that's where I always play my electric stuff, or where I always do my improvisational stuff. The Red Barn is really, you could almost feel the history of artists who have worked there. I loved it. Started painting in 2014, was really bad at it until like 2019. My friend Joshua Cohen, he's involved with like Black Mountain Institute, all these great things, literary. He's a good guy. He had a marketing agency, and he was in a band, Candy Warpop. Well, Josh and I stayed friends for a while, and when he opened his business in the arts factory called Prickly Pear Marketing, he asked if I would show my artwork on the wall for the opening, and I was honored because it was so cool to put my works all up. There's a guy named Turbo Ted. He had just moved to town, and I remember it's opening night. I had all my pieces hung. They're all like tiny 12 by 18, paintings. And I loved it. I was proud of it, but I had no real plan for it. And the first guy I chose, Turbo Ted, he just come to town and said, "Hey, you want to check out my show? Come on here down the hallway." He's like, "This is your first show, isn't it?" I can tell. I was just like, okay. And, it's just funny, people like you or they don't like you. And they either really like you or they really don't like you. And I've had a lot of that. But I forget where it tied into, but all the mediums have come together in this in relative obscurity thing. It's cool. The music, the painting have come together into the video artwork that I saw in London and Berlin and Italy when I had my 2022 artist residency. I got a passport and I got to go see the Venice Biennale, and it was insane. And that was kind of like, I don't even know. I'm still processing that to this day. It's almost 5 years later, but I don't know. I lost track of where I am question-wise.
Well, don't worry about it, because it's all good. Now, you're talking about relative obscurity.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what that is?
I do. So that was the point. Suzanne picked me up after that 2022 thing where a lot of people saw, wow, Brian's out there in Europe doing the thing. He's out there with this, artist residency that took him across the pond, or whatever people want to say. So eventually when I came back, when I was out there in London, I got to see artist Chris Corsano. He's an improvisational drummer at Cafe OTO in London. And that was such a legendary venue for me, because this Australian trio called The Necks, like your neck, The Necks. I would always watch them online on YouTube, and they would always be live at Cafe Auto or OTO. And I got to see that place 3 times in a row during this guy's residency. And I was just so in awe that there's not in Las Vegas, the strip sucks up all the entertainment juice, so to speak. Like all the energy goes towards the strip, the big shows, the big residencies. And that makes sense. I totally respect it. I get it. There's not a lot of underground stuff since the Bunkhouse Saloon. There's a new wave of venues coming up now, but we don't have that respect that I saw in London at this Cafe OTO. And so when I came back, in relative obscurity was my way of bringing Europe, what I saw out there, how I felt like a fish in water. I came back and just tried to create a pond with that kind of water in it, if that makes sense. That's a weird analogy, but I really did try to bring back the culture that I saw all these video artworks. I didn't know video art was a thing, really, especially to show on these big screens and rooms full of them. And that spoke to me. So, because I could add a narrative over it, I could add words, I could add whatever I wanted over video art, and that was so cool. And it was, again, it's another way to work with people, collaborate. And so I have been chasing that video art thing ever since I came back. Well, simultaneously, when I came back from Europe, I met Suzanne. Well, Suzanne changed my freaking life again.
Had you ever been to Goldwell before that?
No.
Okay.
I joined the board, and for 4 months, I still hadn't visited it. If you can believe it. She saw me online, like a lot of people did, like posting about Nancy Good's residency. That was my first one. Then I went to blah, 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 all these residencies. And then she's finally went, hey, what do you think about joining Goldwell? And I knew all these rock stars on the board. And I know, man, Kim Johnson was on at one point. Nancy Good was previously the secretary. She goes, we need a new secretary. Why not you? That felt so alien to me. I did not feel adept to jump into that role, but I said yes. And when I said yes, Suzanne invited me to the first board meeting. She gave me this big white book. And if my video was on, and it was a book of Albert, all this information about him.
Oh, that's what the book was, huh?
Yes. It had just come out from the Verbeke Foundation. And it's so funny. The Verbeke Foundation is like Goldwell in Belgium. They're an outdoor museum or an outdoor sculpture park. They are focused on like programming for music and arts in general. So they had a huge amount of Albert's early artworks. They had bought them. And so I didn't know any of this yet, though. I just saw this big book for Verbeke Foundation, this guy on the front, young guy with a mannequin. And he looked like Jim from the Doors. And basically, I read the book, and it talks about this young guy who was conceived in a labor camp. His mother ran away to America, so he's left with his dad. His stepmother hates him, so he's always out of the house. And he's always watching movies or like listening to music or anything creative. He was just roaming around the city. So as he gets older, he starts hanging around with artists and starts making his own art. And Albert isn't making jokes in art or about art, but he is. And that's something I really resonated with, is this like guy who is just winging it. He said, I'm winging it and I don't want to think about everything too much. I want things to be rough. He was expressing himself in his experiences or lack of comfort or whatever it was that drove him. I really resonated with this. The pictures, the raw aesthetic of the sculptures that this museum bought, my mind was blown because I'd never seen this kind of patronage before. And reading about how Albert came out here looking for his mother in the 70s with this woman named Nettie Van Heel. I'm probably butchering the words, but if you look at the Last Supper sculpture, the plinth, it says for Nettie, and that's never mentioned.
Oh, okay.
There's so many pieces of Goldwell's history that I've discovered that just aren't mentioned enough, in my opinion. And that's subjective, right? They're doing an amazing job. I was doing the best I could to digitize a lot of this stuff. And so that was another driving force of In Relative Obscurity was I reached out to Verbeke Foundation and said, hey, I'm Brian. Can I scan some of these pages that I found in your Albert Zukowski book? And they're like, we're so happy to hear that you found it. Here's all the PDFs, high resolution. Please use them however you like. Just let us know. And my mind was blown. I felt so blessed.
Yes, that had to feel really good.
Yes, it gave me so much drive to share this the best I could. Well, my abilities were limited. They still are. We all are. We all have our limitations. So to this day, it's been like 3 years of wrestling. Like, how do I tell this story and be honest about what I read, but also not like too biased, too selfish on my own part? I want to use myself as an example, but I don't want to make it about me. And I'm still working on my voice and communicating. I feel like, we're having a conversation right now, but I often feel like I could get lost or lose people in when I'm talking to them, you know? So I'm trying to distill all of this. I'm still working on refining my communication. So I finally taken a public speaking course at college. It was like one of the first ones I chose. It was like public speaking, please. And so I've learned about persuasive speeches and how you should tell your credentials at the top and then what ideas you're going to go over, and then go through each idea with points to support the facts that you're presenting, and think about your audience. And oh my God, thinking about your audience, that changed my life, because I was always like, how do I make this video about Albert? Because I didn't know about how are you going to make a video if you don't know who you're talking to? And I still don't know who I'm talking to, because to be honest, even, you know, today, a lot of people, I'm even confused by the thing. I don't know if you got to listen to the In Relative Obscurity 3 or any of them, but I sent you a press link for the latest one. And it's heavy, man. It's a long piece of art. It's a lot, but it's beautiful. Just like the desert, it's life or death, you know? And I feel like I'm very much leaning into the weight of my experiences out there. It almost feels like a mirage when you put on this video art. It almost feels like this, you know, just walking through the desert and you could hear the sun. To me, that's what it sounds like. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, you can hear the sun.
You can hear the heat. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I'm always wondering, and I've had conversations about this with DK at the Barrack about smell, because that's a sense in art that we never use. So, you know, because
that's so interesting.
You know, there's the smell in the desert when it rains. I mean, that's kind of a given, you know, but I think, you know, when it starts to turn night, I can smell different. So I enjoy the smell. And I think people look at me like I'm crazy. There's like, we can't smell anything.
Well, I think that's actually a really cool point you brought up, because I'm always searching for those little, what haven't we considered here? And the smell, I haven't considered that. Ooh, that would be a fun scratch and sniff for the CB version of. Anyways,
yeah, we talked a lot about, you know, could you put smell in an art gallery, but you know, then it would put up little molecules and they would get on other art and they would ruin it. And so with DK, we had this, I don't want to say it's a long conversation, but we had a conversation about it one time. I was like,
you know what? I love that you brought her up though, because not only have I heard about her from many people, so she's out there, she's mingling, she's talking. Those are the people that are important, not the ones that are saying anything about, I don't know. It's people like her that are supporting other artists. And I don't know, I've just heard so many people speak about DK, and she was actually the one who approached me after the first In Relative Obscurity came out in 2023. I premiered at ASAP Gallery when that was still up in the.
Oh yeah. That was just upstairs from Nancy.
Yep, exactly. And I got to premiere the show there, the video artwork. And DK was one of the only people that showed up. I had a lot of friends show up, but, you know, the Goldwell board members, they didn't show up. It's just fine. But we had our own differences. And now they've got a lot has happened. So a whole new chapter of the Goldwell is happening, honestly, and which is amazing. But to bring it back to that premiere of the first one in 2023, DK showed up. And I remember hearing about, well, okay, the Goldwell 40th year anniversary, we're going to make the Dry Heat publication about Goldwell. The whole issue is going to be about Goldwell. And DK asked Suzanne to write the opening intro. And I remember she's like, would you like to chip in, Brian? I remember I saw your work and you could give us your take on being one of the only artists I know of that makes works about Albert Schukowski. I consider you an expert. And I was like, what the hell? You know, I have an issue with self-confidence sometimes. And so all these, the weight of the work, the subject of the work being so reflective of my own story in some ways, it meant a lot to be seen by her. And I think that's what she does for a lot of people is I always hear like she left an impression with them. I think it's because she sees people and is actually interested. But she was the way I got my first commissioned essay for the UNLV Dry Heat Volume 5. I was the closing contemporary perspective for the Volume 5 of Dry Heat. And that was just, yeah, that's when I left. After that, I was like, you know what? I've done enough here. I spent 2 years on the board of directors for Goldwell. And I just kind of said, this is a good time to go because Suzanne's going. And Michelle stepped up. I got to help Michelle install her Keep Going sculpture. Not a lot of people know that, but you can find on my YouTube channel, there's a recap of Keep Going. I wrote this grant for the Bullfrog Biennial, but the funding didn't get there until after the event was planned. So it's just a big mess up. Eventually, it was only Michelle out of 20 artists that ended up installing her work because she wrote a grant proposal that said, hey, I'll get such and such amount. I'll build this sculpture in this location. And it had to be done by the proposal. So we still, even though the event was canceled, Michelle Graves and I still went out there and installed this sculpture, all these leathers in the back of her truck. We're driving her out there. We stayed at Derek Stoneberger's house. It was, looking back, it was I don't know. And now I use it all the time, stay here. And so it all feels so big, right? I don't know. It all feels so like a Carl Jung, synchronistic, you know?
I used it in an arts council presentation one time.
What's that?
Keep going. Because they're like, how do you do such? I just posted the picture of her. There, keep going. You got to keep going.
Amazing. When did you do that?
It was the Intersections Conference, and I was talking about intergenerational mentorships. And how do you do this? Well, I couldn't think of anything better than you got to just keep going.
I think that's incredible because the intergenerational part, I always found myself working with people that were a little older than me, or being inspired at least. It probably came from growing up without many role models. But yeah, I do like having someone to pick a brain on. You know what I mean? I love conversations with someone that has experience, and now I'm getting that experience and I'm enjoying sharing with younger people.
Oh my God, you're an old guy.
I am kind of turning into it, dude. So I haven't mentioned it in this yet, but this band, New Slang, they've asked me they're like, hey, can you help us? They first wanted me to join their band. So I was like, nah, I'm too busy. Then they wanted just a t-shirt design. I go, okay, well, here, all right, cool. We got a deal. And then it turned into, will you do our album artwork? Will you do another album artwork? Will you, well, guys, why don't we just reach out to the weekly since we're doing all this? And so they were just in the weekly last week, New Slang. And using my previous relationships to help people market their music has been so fun. I actually just got them, this is secret, but it won't matter by the time it's out. But yeah, they just I got them signed on to a Brooklyn Bowl show in September. So it's just so fun to help them market themselves and reach out on behalf of people. I am thinking about trying to open up some sort of PR thing. I don't know. Sounds crazy, but it just might work. It's so crazy it might work.
Well,
it's already working.
The most important thing, I think, is and I was at one of the first Fridays I was hanging out. Oh, yeah, because I had an exhibition at Vat of Humanities. And there was a young kid came in. He was a photographer, and he was asking Bobby Ann, what's the best way to market myself? And she told him, make contacts, make friends, meet people.
Say hello.
Yeah.
Say anything. Yeah. I mean, it's true. But, the more I've not talked to people, I haven't been isolating, but I've been very focused on my new line of work. I'd sick a lot and starting college and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it means so much to me to collaborate. And just this conversation, honestly, I consider not mentorship, but it is something that I really enjoy. So I'm glad we finally got to call it.
Yeah, hopefully we're talking about things that you wouldn't normally talk about today.
We are, yeah.
So that's good. Before we get back to today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about the 2 new books that have recently found their way into the world. The Art of Noticing is a collection of observations, essays, and reflections inspired by years of photography, podcast conversations, travel, public lands, and the simple practice of paying attention. It's a reminder that wonder is often hiding in plain sight if we slow down long enough to notice. My newest release, Sandcastle Windows, is my first work of fiction, set between present-day Nevada and the Paris art world of the 1870s. It explores a question that has fascinated me for years. What if you could step inside a future memory? It's a story about art, friendship, time, and the moments that shape our lives long before we realize their importance. Both books share a common thread, the belief that ordinary moments often become the memories we treasure most. To learn more about the art of noticing and Sandcastle Windows and my other children's books, visit my Amazon author page. And now let's get back to the Art Box. Hey, so if Albert were standing beside you today, looking at your work, what would you hope he'd say?
I hope he'd give a grin and go, yeah, man. I've heard so much about him that he's just kind of he likes to have a good time and just hang out and drink beer, smoke pot, whatever. I bet he would be happy with. And he says it. I include this quote, but in Death Valley Project, there's this DVD, Death Valley Project. It came out 20 years ago or 22 years ago now. And he says, I hope this sculpture is only a start. I could see this place going on forever. And he's right. I hope he would be happy with, what's been going on. And I know he'd be happy with it because there's some strange folks coming out in a good way.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you catch the name of the guy, Daniel Menchie? He just came out there.
I was going to ask you about him.
When I moved out to Pahrump when I was like 16, 15, whatever it was, I would order CDs from this label called Hydra Head Records. And there's this guy, Aaron Turner, on there, and he was like my idol. Well, now like 30 years, whatever years later, Daniel Menchie is a close collaborator with the people I grew up listening to, like Sun O, this drone band. It's very underground famous, but big deal in my eyes, like legends of the genre. I mean, Daniel Menchie was telling us stuff about Kurt Cobain and what the guy from the band Earth said about Kurt when it happened. And, he was just like the Melvins is a good example of an adjacent artist, like your favorite band's favorite bands, people that have been around forever and are continuing to do it. I got hit up by I reached out to Daniel myself about 2 years ago. We just had coffee at Public Gus, but I told him about Goldwell. And when he came back out for he's a photographer, so he's always coming out to the desert. He said, hey, what's up with the show out there at that weird desert museum you mentioned? I'm like, I'll ask him. And it ended up working out. So yeah, we went out there. I recorded him and his process. It was very interesting, but I'm still working on this documentary because I have hours and hours of footage of this guy and what he was doing. But it was incredible because when it's all said and done, this happened in late March, and in April it was determined that his record will be released on Lawrence English's record label, Room 40 Records. Lawrence English is like the leading field recording guy. He is like just legendary again, and that's an Australian record label, so it's an international, little accomplishment in my eyes, like having gotten to facilitate him coming out there. And it hasn't even been released yet, but I feel like it's I'll look back and be like, wow, that really set off some stuff. It's interesting, like the people I used to listen to when I was a kid, and now I've got to work within a few degrees of those people, and I have a room there's a seat at the table for me if I want it. If I just keep making the art, I'm talking with people that I never dreamed I would talk to about collaborating.
Yeah. How does that feel?
Pretty surreal. I'm not gonna lie. It feels really, really surreal because life is so full of these like crazy moments and like, oh, how did I do that? Why did I do that? And then these moments were like, how did this happen in the best way ever? It all ties together. It feels good. It feels like it should be happening. And that feels comforting.
Yeah. I'm not sure, because I've had some things where people that, they're just way above me. I can't talk to them. And yet then I get a seat at the table with them and I'm like, oh my God, they talk to me like I was a normal person. And I don't know how to describe it.
You know what's funny is one of the insights I've had recently within the last year or two is I've never had a problem saying hello to whoever about whatever. So that definitely helps, is not having any. But I've been like, man, my social cues are a little off sometimes, you know, but that is a huge plus for me when it comes to meeting people in the art world, because I will talk your ear off if you let me. I will show endless curiosity that is genuine. And I think that's priceless. That's what gets you a room at the table, a seat at the table. The one thing I see about you is you're just always speaking with people. You're inquiring naturally. It doesn't feel forced. You're not pushing it. It's natural. I was supposed to speak to you like 2 years ago and it never happened. And we circle back around and it's natural. You know, there's no ego in it. I feel like you really are doing the work because it's the work.
This isn't work. I'm
You're
just
a conduit.
I'm just sitting
Yeah.
here smiling because I can talk to you today. And I talk to so many different people, but it's amazing that everybody's different. Brian, you're different than everybody else. Which, let me ask you this. You said that you used to believe your work was simply too weird for people to understand.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. What do you think?
I used to and I still do, but I think it's good because it keeps me interested. It keeps me. You never know how you appear through other people's eyes, you know? You really don't. And I have had so many people give me the nicest compliments, you know? But it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the reason why what I do. If anything, it does help me know that I should keep going because there is something to this. And the idea of legacy has really been sitting with me the last few years. Not my own legacy, but what will eventually become my own legacy. Because everything I make every single day could become something that my son listens to in 30 years, you know? He might show his kid. And those are really new feelings for me. And they're really great feelings. And they're really tough feelings because nothing is ever perfect. So, you know, like it's such a human experience. And I'm really starting to enjoy it, even though I used to feel crushed by it a lot. And I still do. But there's this other side to it that kind of acts like my flotation device, if you will. And it's this understanding that I will be okay. It's this faith. It's like, keep going. Whatever you want to use, stay here is what I called the latest IRO 3 in Relative Obscurity 3. I call it Stay Here because, well, it was a play on the residency. It was a play on the sculpture I helped with Michelle with. I love that sculpture that she made. And it's just, yeah, stay here. Just keep, it all comes together and it's thrilling to see and experience. I'm not sure how to quite communicate it yet further than that, but at the same time, I kind of feel like that might be enough.
Well, I think it's enough because everybody else has to look at it and make their own judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay if they make their own judgment. But at the end of the day, I hope that they actually talk with me about it. I'm loving the titles and the legacy, you know, and just the thought of things happening right now. It'll all make sense one day. Then that's just a sentiment that really, I feel like anyone that hears it knows what you mean.
Yeah, one of the things I say about this podcast is, and I think I say it on the opening, that I really don't appreciate a piece of art until I can hear the history of it. Or the story behind it. All right. And I got to talking with Kim Johnson the other day. And we were talking. One of the things, I think a movie ruins a book because I look at, so a book is a piece of art. Things I was asking her, I look at your art. I know what it means to me. I look at, especially Candace Garlock, good God, I look at her stuff and I come up with all these things that I think she scratches her head and say, what's wrong with you? But so what I want to is, for some people, if I look at a piece of your work, I know what it means to me. Then does it ruin it by having you tell me what it meant to you?
You're asking me if
I don't know. That's just kind of what I've always said. I want to hear it from the artist. But then I've been thinking more after talking to Kim, maybe I don't.
Yeah. So it's funny, actually. I've known about Kim. I've been around Kim. She's always super kind. And I see her work and I'm super inspired by the gorilla cages. That was one of the main things I remember seeing. And they lived in this, they made and lived in this house right by where they put the gorilla cages. So I'd see the work being done. I'd feel almost hear the saws all day just going and the people painting it at night. And it was just so nice to be in the middle of that. So I forget the question, but
I forget it too. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just thrilling to be around all these people that I get to meet simply because I'm an artist and they want to hear. I like when people talk to me about it, and I don't mind. I agree with your sentiment that I want to hear about what they had in mind. I don't need to hear it, but I do want to hear it. And I want to have that back and forth with a person because I feel like that's almost what art is for. Not only a surface level conversation starter, but it is like an artifact imbued with all this intangible stuff that should be looked at and explored.
Yes. Yeah. So I really didn't think much about that until after I talked with Kim. I was like, maybe I don't want to know about it, but I do. You spend a lot of time thinking about Albert Sokolowski's legacy. All right. So I have to ask you, when someone stands in front of your work 50 years from now, what do you hope they discover about the person who created it?
My own work. It's a really great question. I would say that I hope they see that art is a communicative medium, and they too, I often hear from people when I show them art, oh, I wish I could paint that. Oh, I wish I could. And you can, trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. And that's not, it's not a joke. I have a lot of trouble doing a lot of things, paying attention. If I could do it, you can do it. And it's just letting go of all these preconceived notions. So I think that's what it would be, is to not have such a stranglehold on everything that you love so that it can breathe too, I don't know. That's a lot to take away from just looking at a painting or looking at a piece of art. But, recognizing the intangible, intuitive parts of someone creating an artwork and realizing you two do have that in you, because the fact that you recognized it means that it's in your world.
Of course, looking at a piece of Brian Gibson's art means to immerse yourself into video, audio, visual. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a walk by and say, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah, it's not. I've been wondering what I wanted people to take from these larger abstract works I do, but I think that's the point. Is I'm making something bigger than myself, and I'm a big guy, so I'm like 6'2", so I like making these big works because my arms go naturally that wide, and I can make the gestural, paint stroke. I can hang it up really high and just stare at it, or, stand across from it, just try to stand it down. I don't know. I feel like that is a big part of it. Just sitting in front of you're almost brain dumping, and then you can sit across from it and feel everything you just brain dumped and visually watch the paint dry, in a metaphorical and physical meaning. Yeah.
Hey, you know what I'm thinking of? You just got me thinking of Rita Dean and Abby's. Have you been there?
Yes.
That museum.
What an incredible span of decades of her works. My God, I want to dive more into that stuff. And I know that they've been doing quite a few like PR things. I see quite a few articles about it. I went about a year or two ago, and my God, the mass of her sculptures, and knowing that she was a teacher but had this like secret work collection of works, because to my understanding, she wasn't always showing all the time when she was alive. She was, and she wasn't. Her whole entire work now is up for display. Her whole collection is amazing.
Yeah, and there's seats there, and if I go there, and I've been there once, and I need to go again, but I couldn't stay there long enough. All right, because I'd have to sit down in the seat, and so when you're gone, 100 years from now, would you hope that there would be seats in the Brian Gibson Museum?
Yeah, I hope there'd be seats, maybe rocking chairs, because I like to fidget when I sit. Even when I'm sitting, I like to fidget a little bit, so any kind of movement. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, I that's a good question. I do hope that there is. I like the text on the wall. That's something I saw a lot of in Europe and all the shows or museums I went to, the White Cube Gallery. I loved the explanations. I loved the context. I loved Jenny Holzer's story being told to me while I'm looking at all of these different signage she made. You know what I mean? And the Broad Museum, just reading all the text on the wall. That's why I hope there's a lot of seats and a good brochure.
Okay. Well, let me ask you our last question. What has inspired you this past week?
Working at the facility I work at, I brought in a Korg Monotron. It's a little tiny ribbon synthesizer I bought for $40. I brought in for my client. He was like 13 and, lost both parents. Grandma couldn't hang around, so he's there now.
Brian, after our conversation, I became curious about that little synthesizer you mentioned taking to work with the young people you mentor. It's called the Korg Monotron, and while it may fit in the palm of your hand, it's a surprisingly powerful creative tool. Instead of piano keys, it uses something called a ribbon controller. You simply slide your finger along a strip to create notes. There are no lessons required, no sheet music, and no pressure to get it right. That fascinated me because psychologists have long found that making music can reduce stress, improve mood, and give people a healthy outlet for expressing emotions that are difficult to put into words. For young people who may be struggling, an instrument like the Monotron removes one of the biggest barriers to creativity, the fear of making a mistake. It made me wonder if the real instrument isn't the synthesizer at all. Maybe the real instrument is curiosity. Sometimes all it takes is one unexpected sound to remind someone they still have the ability to create something beautiful. And that may be the most important note of all.
But yeah, I am inspired by seeing him interact with these toys. And he goes, Mr. Brian, check this out. And then he has a glitch effect on it or whatever it may be. And then him trying the drum machine and then him trying the keyboard and his headphones and just watching his face just like vibe with the texture of the sound. That has inspired me. Outside that, in actual media, I would say that honestly, your podcast inspires me. I've listened to a couple episodes, Kim Johnson, the Michelle Graves one. Just, I like this medium. So that's inspired me. Just people talking.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It inspires me every day. People talk. I've still looked forward to our conversation here today.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I've been looking forward to it I've been looking forward for 2 years, And I'm like, come on, Brian.
I know. And we do have plans to do Beatty Days. Isn't that right? I'm
going to be up at Beatty Days. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm going to be up there the whole time. I'm going to, I was, Zoe was like, well, you better make sure you get your hotel room. No, it's October. I'm going to camp.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I mean, if we could do a part 2 on then, that would be great because the documentary about Daniel Menchie, it's not done, but it'll be a lot more done by then. And I'll have more insight as to what's happened since we talked today.
Okay.
And I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that. Oh, and then, of course, I know you've seen that they fixed the hole in the roof at the Red Barn. So that's a real positive.
I didn't see that. I got to see that.
Yeah, they put a picture up.
I did not see that.
Yeah, they put a picture up and said, because when I was up there, somebody said, oh, yeah, this guy said he's going to be up there and he wants to talk to you guys. He'll fix it. So they're like, oh, great. And then they posted something on Facebook where it's fixed. So that's good.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you want to PR yourself, Brian?
Well, there's an art show I have coming up, a silent auction, and a whole month-long exhibition coming up called One Day You'll Understand. It's at Recycle Propaganda. It opens August 7th with the silent auction portion and First Friday. And I'll have all my large abstract pieces hung up. These pieces haven't been hung before outside of Inside Style when Mark and Jill Abelman let me have a space in 2023. That was for Boy Toy Summer exhibition. But yeah, this is the first exhibition since then where I've been able to hang these 6-foot+ works of art that I've made in, Calico Basin private studio and with Dina Kashaba and Brett Sperry paint on this one. And just all these pieces that I've never got to show together, I get to finally show them together. And that's exciting. And normally Isaac Recycle Propaganda does not have this front wall loaded with artwork. So it's going to be cool for people to walk in and already be faced with some large scale abstract artworks. Yeah, that'll be going on all August. I do plan on having a closing reception at some point that will also see the audio from In Relative Obscurity 3, like some sort of a listening party. But for right now, it's a lot about the paintings, and I hope to see everybody there maybe. One day you'll understand is what Alex Huerta told Isaac when Isaac saw Alex giving all this wall space away for free to artists that weren't paying for it. He's like, dude, why are you just giving away wall space? And he said, one day you'll understand. And Isaac was like, this was supposed to be just a silent auction, but I decided to give you the whole month because I know how much it can help. And I have this platform now to do so. And Alex told me that. So that really was a moment for me. And I decided to call the show that. So I'm looking forward to it. And I hope people can come out or arrange a studio visit, whatever. I'll walk you through it. I'm working on a brochure for it. So yeah, etc. It'll be fun.
Cool deal. And I don't want to interrupt you for your other URLs and everything, but I will be there on First Friday. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good. I'm excited to see you there. Instagram is null_void_art. My website, inrelativeobscurity.com. It will have some art prints up there. It will have some more information about the last 2 iterations of the project and the upcoming one. And finally, just reach out to me on any of those platforms. Anywhere you can see me, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. I guarantee it. So thank you so much for having me on, Steven. It's no joke. This has been great.
Oh, Brian, this is fabulous. I knew when I got up this morning, my wife's like, what are you running around here for? I said, I got a really good podcast today.
Oh, man. Well, I felt the same way. I was excited in a nervous, excited way. The good nervous, I was like, oh, man, I was excited to get it going.
Yeah, so, don't ever be nervous with me, please.
I'm not.
I'm
excited
people
to see it First Friday, dude.
Oh, it's just me.
No, it's an excitement. It's easy to confuse. But yeah, I am really excited to see you in person on First Friday, man. I can't wait to say hey in person.
Yeah, I'll be down there. I've got to, I'm going to come down there and then head down to Viquame to camp because I'm going to they're having a dark sky thing on Saturday night. So this will be my weekend.
I've got to pick your brain more on all this stuff because I just love how involved you are with all these different things throughout Nevada. I really do. I find that inspiring, dude.
So, well, Viquame is inspiring. There's just so many good people down there, and I think it's a 2-year-old national monument, and it's great. And
wow.
So, okay.
2-year-old national. All right. Yeah.
All right, Brian, well, have a great day, and you're going to go off to work, and you're going to do good work with people. And from my heart, that's always, I'm sure everybody appreciates it.
Well, I appreciate that, Steven, and I hope you have a great day as well. Look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, you do the same, Brian. Thank you.
All right, see ya.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Artbox Podcast. We're recording from our home studio inside the Mesquite Steam Center, right here in the beautiful Mojave Desert, where creativity and curiosity meet under wide open skies. From the written word and poetry to collage, brush art, pencil, ink, fabric, and pottery, from theater and song to archaeology in our public lands, we celebrate the many ways creativity shows up in the world around us. You can find us on Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Boomplay, or your favorite podcast app. We'd love to hear from you. Find us at theartboxpodcast.com. Drop us a note anytime at artboxvv@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends so they can join the conversation too. Most importantly, take a moment to follow and support the artists and creative souls who join us here, because their stories are what make the Artbox come alive. This is Daisy, and until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and keep sharing your story.